Thanks. Thanks, Boris. I'm actually very loud, but I'll use this. I'm usually a loud person. I'm going to just get all my gadgets out of my pockets. Sorry. I always got like iPhone cables and stuff like that. All right. So I wanted to talk about something that I found a lot of people know about, but not a lot of people do. So I guess I can show of hands who knows about pair programming, who's heard of it, who knows what it is. Awesome. Who does it? Yeah, very few. A few. Okay. A few, that's good. It's more than zero. These two, I would assume, because we built Xtreme, and I'm an investor in this company, so awesome. They do pairing. So what I wanted to talk about is like why your engineers would be afraid to pair. In the back there, someone said you should have called it why this group is afraid to let their engineers pair. So maybe that's the same thing. And I'll walk you through some excuses and some benefits, but I'm here all day. I'd love to talk about it more, and I guess without further ado, so a little bit about me. Who am I? I went to Waterloo, graduated. When I first got to Waterloo, they gave me a piece of paper, said, this is your email address, and I was like, what's email? So that's how old I am. I went to U of T as well, did a degree in financial engineering, and worked at a lot of small and big companies, so I had seen a lot of different engineering environments and had led teams in all those different companies, and then most recently at Pivotal Labs. And why am I qualified to talk about pairing? Well, we ran the largest office at Pivotal with about 120 pairs, so about 240 engineers, which is very large. It starts small, but it gets pretty big, and so I think I'm qualified. I'm also qualified because there was this article at the top called Pair Programming Considered Harmful in TechCrunch, and the one below is my response at TechCrunch, where I said, no, it's not. Actually, it's interesting. The pictures were interesting. The first one's like kids. And at the bottom, that's really what it is. It's like a pilot and co-pilot, right? I thought it was a very good way to show, like, no, it's not about like just effing around with two people on one machine. It's actually about people working together to achieve the same goal. So I think that's why I'm qualified to talk about it. And what is it, just for people to make sure we're on the same page? Actually, this is an article from the New York Times about pair programming. Another great picture, right, for writing software, a buddy system. But what is it exactly? What it is exactly is 2 keyboards and 2 mice, 2 monitors, 2 engineers, 1 computer. And I put a little asterisk there that they have the same goal. Just like in the airline example, you're trying to fly the plane in the safest way possible to the destination, and 2 people are working together using the same sets of controls to control 1 plane. Right? So in pair programming, you have this idea of a driver and a navigator working together to achieve something. And I think it's important to understand the definition, because this is where it all starts as to why it's important that you should start thinking about this. Now, why do I keep talking about this? Everyone talks about, when they ever talk about me, they hear me going to do a talk, I'm always talking about pair programming. Literally, I was in the back there saying, I'd love to come to your company and do a talk about pair programming. Why do I keep talking about it? Well, I keep talking about it because it literally is the most powerful engineering management technique I've seen. And very few people use it. Right? When we saw the hands go up, everybody knew about it, but a few people use it. And I think there is a fear from engineering and from engineers and from engineering management to try it or use it. And I think it's sad. So I have the sad emoticon. It's such a powerful technique, and I've seen so many different things. I mean, if you think about it, what we were able to do at Xtreme, which is build some of the biggest, most successful mobile apps in the world from Toronto, so forget about even from Toronto, Facebook, Twitter, Uber, Instagram, Vine, the NFL, the NBA, Thomson Reuters, Bloomberg, Slack. A lot of those things were built in Toronto at the Xtreme Labs team. Why were they coming to us? Was it how we had great people? Great, sure, of course we did. Was that we had a great process? Yes. We used pair programming to work faster than them with higher quality. Right? So we have those folks calling us. First call they would make, please, can you help me with this? And it was, of course, we had great people, but we didn't have, like, when people talk about these unicorn 0.001% engineering, I'm not diminishing anybody who was at Xtreme, just saying we had a better process, and pair programming was a big part of how we learned and how we scaled. And the other thing that happened was companies would call us and say, I don't want to refer you because I feel like as you get big, my level of service quality will go down. Right? It happens. You're a 10-person startup, and then you become a 100-person startup, and now you're not able to service those clients as effectively. That didn't happen with us. We had these little mini teams everywhere that were just as effective when we were 350 people as when we were 10. Right? So pair programming was how it happened. I'm hoping that if I can convince like 1 person to do it, I'm still going to talk about it. So what do I hear? Well, so why are engineers afraid to pair? Why are engineering managers, why are they afraid to let their engineers pair? Well, I think the first excuse is, well, there's no research. There's no theory. There's nothing that tells me that, hey, I should read this academic paper that's telling me that actually pairing is more effective. And it's funny, if you actually research a lot of academia, a lot of things that happen in the world actually happen first by somebody doing it, and then it goes into academia, somebody researches it. So I used to say this all the time. This is like my line. I'm not sure if pair programming works in theory, but it works in practice. Right? So who cares what the research says? It just works. Don't think about it too much. But actually, if you do the research, it actually turns out there is research. And there's lots and lots and lots of research about pair programming. And this is just one quote that somebody retweeted to me actually just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's a great paper. I actually do ship it around. I'm happy to share the paper after. It's called The Costs and Benefits of Pair Programming. And what do they talk about here? That 15% is a little misleading. In the first few experiments they did, it actually was about a 60% cost in pair programming, and then it got down to 15% as people got more comfortable. So I want to give you the real data. It's about 15% more expensive. But what does it do? Pair programming improves design quality, reduces defects, reduces staffing risk, enhances technical skills, improves communications, and is considered more enjoyable at statistically significant levels. Does that sound worth 15%? Does to me. So there is actually research, and they did have people pair and unpair, and they did, it's a great paper to read if you're interested about the cost. But there actually is research. I still think you don't need the research because it works in practice. But if you're interested, you can look at a lot of data that shows you what's working, what's not working. But we don't have enough engineers. I hear this one all the time. I have a small startup. We're only 20 people. We only have 10 engineers. I can't start pair programming. My velocity is going to go down. This is my office. How many engineers are in the picture? Let's go. That's the question. 2. 1 pair. That is my office. We have 2 engineers. So if you say you don't have enough engineers, I call BS. Because we have 2 engineers. Now we have 8 engineers, and we have 4 pairs. But when we started, we had 2 engineers, and guess what they're doing? They're pairing. So you don't have to worry about the number of engineers. It still can happen in very small scales, and it's still very, very effective for knowledge sharing and moving quicker. I'll talk about some of the benefits. All right. Because it's too slow. I hear this one a lot, too. It's going to slow down my development because I'm going to have 2 people working on the same task when they could be split up and working in parallel on different tasks. Now, we saw the research that says actually, when you look at the overall cost, once people get actually very, very versed with pair programming, it starts at 60% cost, right? So it is more expensive, gets down to 15%. So yeah, it's still a little bit more expensive, a little bit slower, but you saw all the benefits you get. But you have to think about what your goal is. Your goal is actually not this line of like, hey, I'm going to be really productive with some folks and some teams, and then I have a down period after release and then go up. The idea is you want to have predictable, sustainable, high throughput. Right? Pair programming gives you that predictable, high, sustainable throughput. There's a lot of things that go along with pair programming to give you that, but it's the idea of having 2 people work together to achieve the same goal, to not get stuck at the same time, to move quickly, to work intensely, to get things done. We used to actually call pair programming time travel. When I would talk to customers, they would say, why should I pay for 2 engineers working together? I said, because we can shrink calendar time. We can move faster, because instead of 4 or 5 hours a day of coding, we get 8 hours a day. It's because of this idea of predictable, sustainable output. Right? You don't burn engineers out. There's all kinds of benefits, but you have to think about what your goal is. Right? It's funny, in one of these research articles I was reading, they actually had a manager go up to his engineers and say, hey, we're thinking about doing pair programming, what do you think? And the engineer said, well, I ran into this problem that took me about 5 hours to solve by myself, and it would have took me only 5 minutes if I had somebody helping me. Right? And the manager was like, it's like revelation. Right? Now you have to think, what kind of engineers do you want? Do you want the engineer, the superhero engineer, who's going to take 5 hours, who wants to work on it by themselves and come out and be like, I got it? Or is the team the goal? Right? That's the thing to think about. I don't think I'll like it. Engineers say this all the time. Right? I mean, there is a little bit of self-selection, right? In your interview, you can say, hey, we're interviewing for people who want to pair program. And some people, definitely, we saw this at Xtreme. People would walk in and go, oh, pair programming? Walk right out the door. I'm like, cool. Save me a bunch of time, right? No problem. Don't want to pair because we pair. What's interesting, again, don't forget that research study which said that it was statistically higher happiness levels. But what do engineers actually want? Well, you want to learn, you want to master something, you become really, really good at something. They want to work with someone super smart, right? Who doesn't want to join an amazing team and work with them in a very, very smart way? And they want to get things done. Well, guess what? Pair programming is the best way to achieve all those goals. If you think about 100 years ago, when you were training to become something, you would apprentice. You would sit down with the blacksmith, the shoemaker, and you would actually apprentice. That's what pair programming is. It's apprenticing. It's learning firsthand how those things work. And that's exactly what pair programming allows you to do. Have really, really smart people work together to get even smarter. So again, if you think about the goals of what they want, they will like it because that's the goal. Now, and again, if you look at that research study, we saw that it actually allowed them to have statistically higher enjoyment levels of their jobs as well. Just another side effect, right? Which is interesting. But we all have different skills and experience levels. This one I get a lot too, right? Especially when you're thinking about having a full-time pair with like an intern, right? I'm not sure. I don't want to teach an intern what I'm doing, what I'm working on. I don't want to have to slow down my development to teach someone else, right? And what you find is, and I read this article by Ron Jeffries, very famous engineer, and he was saying that he had, he called it some young whippersnapper, full, new grad, sit beside him and correct his mistakes as he was coding, right? And just really right away in his first pair programming experience, came back and said, wow, this is amazing. I'm having to explain my thought process. I'm having to explain why I've been doing things this way all the time. And it's caused me to rethink some of the things that I had to do. It's caused me to actually not only teach this person, right, which is what they originally thought they were doing, just as if you're a mentor in a pair programming pair, but I'm actually learning from this person because they're asking me interesting questions, right? So that junior pair is actually something that's very, very important in pair programming. Senior pairs is another idea that I've heard people have questions about. Why should I have my two top engineers pair together? I don't think I'm going to get the value between working that way. And actually what ends up happening is, it's just like having two really good players in any sports team. Those two players in a sports team don't look at it and go, oh, I have two people, we're working together, and they go, oh, I don't want to work with that guy or that girl. Instead, the team gets way better. Two superstars on a team makes the team a championship team. Same thing in pair programming. Two superstars working together, pairing, makes their game go up, their levels go up. They're learning and feeding off each other. It's very, very interesting to watch, and again, there's great research on having amazing programmers. I think the story was Guy Steele and Richard Stallman. Sanjay Ghemawat and Jeff Dean at Google building, Hadoop, basically. Pair programmed to build that. That's how those things get done. And then, of course, I put that second line there. Don't you want your most skilled engineers to spread the knowledge? Don't you want to take your top performer and have the rest of your team get better because of that person? It's not just by sitting there and reading code and doing code reviews. It's actually by pairing. Actually, do people know how pair programming started? No? Does anybody know how it started? So pair programming started when there was a bunch of the early Agile community thinking about all the cool things that were happening in engineering, saying, you know what works really well? Having somebody look at my code reviews. You know what works well? Writing test code. So they went to all of these different parts of Agile and said, what if we took that component and turned the dial up to 11? What if we said, well, let's do more code reviews. So there's like, instead of once a month, let's do it once a week. Instead of once a week, let's do it once a day. Instead of once a day, let's do it twice a day. And then all of a sudden, there's like, why don't we do it every hour? Like, why don't we just do it all the time? That's what pair programming is. It's just a code review all the time. Same thing with TDD. It was like, let's just test, write code for 50% of the test, 60%, 70%. What if we wrote the test before? That's how all of these Agile things became mantras for the Agile community. Pair programming is constant code review. Right? The idea is, if you think that's a good idea, if you think a code review is a good idea, what about doing it all the time? That's the idea. All right, and you're spreading knowledge. What if I end up doing all the work? I was going to rename this one to, but I want to be the hero. I want to save the day. Right? And really, this is a cause for concern for some people. They're like, hey, but I really just want to work on my own and be the hero, and everybody goes, that's the person who saved us. They're amazing. I don't want to lose them. Right? And in theory, the idea is that, again, we're talking about team sports. It is about a team sport. When you have an airplane, it's not like the pilot sits back and like, I'm the pilot. It's together. The co-pilot, the pilot doesn't do all the flying. They ask the co-pilot, can you look at this instrument? They can look at, the other gauges. Can you take over? Will I do something else? It's a team. That's the idea. If you have engineers like that, I'm not going to go and talk about the myth, or the reality of the asshole engineer. But the idea is, you want to have teams win, not individuals win. And so having this idea of programming being a team sport, pair programming really fits in well by having people spread the knowledge and work as a team to achieve the goal. right? It actually doesn't matter if you have individual engineers that are great. You want the company to win, right? And for the company to win, people have to work together in a very intimate way, and pair programming allows you to do that. All right. We won't attract the best engineers. If we actually, do pair programming, I don't think the best engineers will ever want to work here, right? I hear that a lot. How did we recruit at Xtreme? Well, we recruited over 1,000 people in 4 years. We beat out Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Square, Amazon for engineers all the time. So at Waterloo, we would get routinely more resumes than any of those companies. And in some terms, we would have a 100% acceptance rate. So what that meant was, for engineers, we would have let's say 25 to 30. Sometimes we had 65 engineers. All of them would have offers from Xtreme Labs. They would have offers at Twitter, Apple, Square, and elsewhere, and 100% of them came to us. Now, why did they say that? Look at the next line. We literally surveyed our co-ops. We're like, why did you want to work here? Why did you apply? And then why did you choose us over Twitter or Facebook? And believe me, they were paying more than 2 times more money than what we were paying them. Right? We just followed the Waterloo guidelines. And they were like paying them $2,000 a week. So we were like, okay, well, why are you coming here? And they said, pair programming. Number 1 reason they cited as to why they wanted to work at Xtreme Labs. So again, I will call BS on the I can't recruit the best engineers. All right. We won't keep all the best engineers. Right? I heard this too. They'll burn them out. They want their own computers. They won't be able to do what they want to do. They don't want to, they don't want to work 8 hours a day. That's a different problem. Retention. We had 1% attrition at Xtreme. So I guess I could mic drop there. But all right, can I? We won't create a diverse team. We might only get the agile purists and people who only believe in pairing and really, won't start, it'll be just a very, very single-minded team that is focused on this thing, and it won't be very diverse. Well, again, what we saw at Xtreme, we had about 23% female engineers. It's not 50. Would love it to be 50. Would love help there. And it wasn't a small shop. Like right now, we have 8 engineers, and we have 2 females, so that's also 25%. But we had 240 pairs. So we had a lot of female engineers, which is great. And we had representation from all sorts of folks. Different skill levels, contractors, interns, full-times, different schools, ethnic backgrounds, genders, like all of that happened. And it was because of pairing, I think, made it stronger. I think on the female engineering thing, I think pairing made it a more inviting environment for female engineers. That's just my guess. I don't know why that happened. We didn't specifically, Boris and I talk about all the time, we didn't specifically do anything. We didn't go out and get female engineers. It just happened. So we think it might be because of pair programming. But diversity is not an excuse for not doing pair programming. Something to think about. My manager will never let me try it. That's you guys and gals. And it is something I hear. The suits won't let me try it. Right? Now I can actually call people out when I go to Shopify. JML won't let you try it? Really? Let me talk to them. Start small. Right? It's very hard for somebody to come up to you and say, hey, you know what? I have this idea. I want to do like a 4-week experiment. I think it will help the team gel better. I think we'll learn in a more effective way. I think we could actually recruit more candidates. It's a small incremental cost, maybe 10 or 15% over the long run. Let's try it for 4 weeks. Like I'm assuming, people in this room would be like, that sounds dumb. Right? People would be like, oh, let's try it. And again, I'm talking about things that had worked for us. I think it's worth trying experiments in your own environment to see what works. Maybe there's a small set of folks in your company that would pair program and that works for them but doesn't work for other people. There are no silver bullets in life, unfortunately. So this is something that you should try. And people came to you with this. I think that you should be open-minded to trying it. Let's try it in a lightweight way. Let's try it for 4 weeks. I will say it is a little like surgery, meaning you can't leave halfway. You won't get the effects. So you should try it for at least 4 to 8 weeks, maybe a quarter, and say, hey, look, let's have a quarter. We're going to try this experiment, and we'll see what happens in our environment. All right, bonus slides. Keep to yourself. Secret, super top secret, double lock. It's easier to manage people this way. Super, super easy. Imagine you hire a brand new engineer, and in your current environment, you have to figure out within the first 30, 60, 90 days whether they are good. How do you do that today? Well, you meet with people. You look at their code, maybe. You have frequent check-ins. What do you do in pair programming? You put them beside an engineer. So you hire Henry. You put Henry beside Rebecca. And then Rebecca pairs with him for 3 weeks. Rebecca comes back and goes, Henry's not that good. Like, okay. Henry, go pair with Patricia. Henry pairs with Patricia for 3 weeks. She comes back. How's Henry doing? Henry's not that good. Doesn't communicate, doesn't understand iOS, right? Then you take Henry, you pair him with Brian. Brian comes back and goes, yeah, Henry, he's no good. What happens to Henry? What happens to Henry? Gandhi. Henry's gone. How much work did I have to do? 0. Because guess what? I didn't go up to Rebecca and Patricia and Brian. They came to me. I can't work for 40 hours a week beside this person. They're not that good. They will tell you. It's amazing how little management you have to do in pair programming. Not in like a I'm lazy kind of way, in a like a, hey, this is more effective. This is peer pressure, peer pressure we call it. Peer pressure. There's a way for you to get feedback from folks in a very intense way because they're telling you every day, for every hour, this person is not good. Very, very easy to figure out. Right? So if you want to have a very high-performing team and culture, pair programming helps you get there because guess what? Smart people won't work with non-smart people. It just won't happen. They won't let it happen. Now, in a regular environment, when you have a team of 10 or 15 and there's one person not pulling their weight, you know how long it could take you to figure that out? And people will tolerate it because it's like, oh yeah, every time I interact with that person, yeah, it's only 15 minutes a week. You know, it sucks, but they're not going to like quit. People will quit if I kept Henry on. I'll tell you, because in this case, at Xtreme, I hired Henry. And I was like, Henry's awesome. I interviewed him. I'm not going to get into a whole interviews or horrible predictor performance talk, but I interviewed him, and he was amazing. And then he paired, and everybody kept telling me, I know you interviewed him, I know you hired him, but he sucks. I'm like, okay, let him go. So it is way, way easier to manage, right? And I don't want to go into the legends of Xtreme, but I did manage 120 engineers directly with no managers in between because of this technique, right? It was very, very easy. Recruiting is self-selection. People will come into your environment and go, oh, you guys pair program? Later. It's actually a wicked sign. Really? Do you want to work 8 hours a day intensely and work with someone else? It's a good sign. I figured that out right away, that maybe they're not a good fit. Maybe they're not a good engineer. I don't know. And then knowledge management is so active, right? It's such an easy way. And people come to Xtreme and say, how do you guys have like 100 people who know iOS? I'm like, oh, it's like pair programming. It grows like a virus, right? You have one person who knows iOS, they pair with someone else, and then you split them 2 up, and then you split them 4 up. It's very, very easy to grow, knowledge in a company. There's no silos. All right, I've gone on for a rant. I think that's my last slide. That is my last slide. Questions? Yes? How do you do it? So, like the setup, or how do you get started?
Yeah, no, how do you set up, you have a team, you have multiple nodes,
Yeah.
How do you
start?
How do you introduce it, and how do you set up you said you had 2 leaders, 2
Yep. Yeah, sure.
founders.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I would say is kind of like surgery as well is you should bring someone in who can help you kind of set it up, right? The hardware is super important. You want to have 2 keyboards, 2 mice, 2 monitors. You need to have like cubes and desks that actually allow you to do this. And I've seen some companies go like Office Space and like take apart their cube to like make it happen because if you have those curved cubes, it's super hard because you can't really sit side by side. So hardware setup is important. How to get started? Find people who are interested. Say, hey, look, we're going to try this. I got super lucky in like 99. Kent Beck literally did a talk at Trilogy about pair programming, and I was like, I learned from Kent Beck, TDD and pair programming. But if you can get people who are excited about trying it, to start, and I'm happy to specifically, if people are interested, message me, I will help you get started. Like literally send you the articles, the books, what a hardware setup looks like take pictures of my setup, like that kind of stuff can help you. And then it is important to kind of let it work itself out for like 4 to 6 weeks because you want people to work together a lot. The other thing I didn't talk about is, actually Boris can talk next, but the other thing I didn't talk about is it's easy to kind of spot pairs that are not working, right? You can look across a room and be like, that pair's not working. It's easy because one person's like this and the other person's like this. Like that just happened, right? Or one person's on their phone or something. Like it's so easy. And guess what? In regular work, it's not easy to tell who's working, who's not working. This you can literally just spot it.